Thank you for attending today's session. My name's Carmen Carruthers. We are going to be talking about how to manage some of the rising energy costs that many of us are experiencing in our homes. And I work for the Citizens Utility Board of Minnesota. We're going to talk a little bit about our organization and then cover a number of topics. I'll do a brief introduction of our organization, the Citizens Utility Board. We're going to talk about energy prices themselves and what's been happening and why you may be experiencing increases in your bill. We're going to spend some time actually talking about your energy bills so you can understand how they're structured a little bit more and be able to identify where they're changing and what you can control and what you can't control. And then spending a good amount of time talking about how you can actually save energy and money. I had just one or two brief audience questions. Just curious. Who here has Excel energy? Okay, good, because that's the example we give for electricity. And in terms of natural gas, do you have CenterPoint, Excel, or some other organization? CenterPoint. You have CenterPoint, perfect. Okay, those are examples we're giving. Those are the service providers here in the West Metro, but I thought if someone came up from the East Side, we would be able to accommodate that as well. We're a nonprofit organization, independent, so we're not a utility, we're not a government agency. We operate in the best interests of the public, and we work as a consumer advocate. So we're really here to provide good advice to households so they can make the best decisions possible for their household when it comes to energy issues. And our organization has kind of two areas of focus. The first is outreach. This is me and my cat working from home. And in our outreach programming, we're giving talks like this around the state on a variety of consumer-related energy issues. So we'll talk, very practical things. We'll talk about energy policy. We'll talk about renewable energy, wide variety of topics based on what that particular group that invites us in is interested in hearing about. And we're at community events, having tables. We give free energy bill consultations. So we sit down with people and their bills, ask them a bunch of questions about how their household operates, and then give specific customized suggestions of what that home could do to meet some of their goals, whether it's saving money, trying to reduce their energy consumption. Perhaps they're interested in renewable energy, those types of things. If they're struggling to pay their bills, we'll help connect them to resources to address that. Then the other side of our group is focused on advocacy. So we're active at the state level, at the state legislature when it comes to different things being discussed that will affect consumers. And then also active at the Public Utilities Commission. So are you guys familiar with the Public Utilities Commission? Have you heard of them? Yes. They regulate what are called investor-owned utilities. So we're going to be talking about Excel and CenterPoint in terms of examining our bills. Those are both investor-owned utilities. So when they want to raise our rates, which we're going to talk about today because they're proposing to do that, it's the Public Utilities Commission that will determine whether or not they're allowed to do that. Okay? So we get involved in a lot of issues related to policy, things like what the future of energy might be in Minnesota and how will that affect consumers in different ways. Probably not a surprise to you, but energy costs are changing and quite a lot this heating season that we're in. Natural gas and propane prices are noticeably higher than they were a year ago. Additionally, you might have noticed if you've looked at your bill that there's also what's called cost recovery from a year ago when there was that issue going on across the country where there was a big spike in natural gas prices. Now the gas companies are trying to recover that on our bills. And so you're going to see a line item included in that. And then in addition to that, some of our largest utilities in the state are also proposing rate increases. So this price spike was from February 2021, so it was a year ago. You remember the things that were happening in Texas?
Sure.
Yep, so that affected the country in a variety of ways. And what happened is the price of gas spiked to, kind of almost, if not record highs, very close to it. And our natural gas companies were purchasing gas during that spike, so they incurred much higher costs than they would normally expect to. And now they are passing those extra costs on to the customer. They had to delay that and get permission actually to add those costs to our bill. So there's kind of a plan that's out right now in how it's organized, how we're paying for those prices over time. And it's actually under review as to whether they can continue to charge us for all of those costs. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But there's 3 things happening right now that are impacting our bills. The biggest one is really this market rate, like kind of that you referred to. Just the market rate of natural gas has increased substantially. So that's the biggest impact on your bill. But then we have these extra add-ons that just make it even larger. So here's some information about the proposed rate hikes that are being proposed by CenterPoint and Excel. So CenterPoint's proposing to raise the rates by about 6.5%. When the companies want to propose a rate hike, they have to go before the Public Utilities Commission. It's a fairly long process. So in the interim, until a decision is made, they're allowed to start to get some of that increase that they're requesting. As of January 1st, they're charging an extra 3.9% on our bills as what's called an interim rate. Once this case is decided, if they actually get approved for less than that 3.9% that we're already paying, there'll be a refund on your bill. If it's more than that, then going forward, you'll start to see a higher increase in your rates. So that's how that works. Excel is doing the same thing, and for those of us who are Excel electricity customers, they're proposing to raise their electric rates 21%, but over 3 years. So kind of spread out over 3 years. Their interim rate that was recently approved and you're seeing on your bill starting this January is 6.4% for residential customers. And they do break it out by what's called class. So commercial customers may have a different rate increase than residential customers. So that's why that's called out. You may know Excel also has natural gas in the East Metro area, and they're also proposing to raise those rates 8.6% approximately, and a 4.9% increase went into effect on January 1st as well. And why this is important, especially when we talk about household energy use, is like, what do you notice by looking at this chart in terms of how energy is used in a home? Heating and cooling. Yes, over half of our energy consumption is heating and cooling. So when we're talking about using natural gas, for example, is one of the most common ways of heating our homes, it has a big impact on our bills. When we kind of go down the scale in terms of other uses of energy in our home, water heating is another 15%. So whether you heat with an electric water heater or a gas water heater, it's going to depend which bill that affects.
Sorry for sidetracking you here.
No, not at all.
At what point does it make sense to switch, to lower the thermostat on your house using gas heating,
Yep.
and supplementing it with, say, electric heaters? At what point does that crossover make sense?
Okay, that's a very good question. And what I'll say is electric heating is typically the most expensive way to heat your home. So without having to do some more detailed calculation, like on how efficient your furnace is and how much space you're heating, it likely hasn't hit that point where it would make more sense to switch to electric.
And general rule of thumb, like once natural gas gets to be so many dollars per cubic feet versus how much cents a kilowatt electricity costs, generally where is the rule of thumb break-even point?
Yeah, and that I'm sorry I can't answer because it's going to be like fluctuating based on what the electricity cost is as well. And again, different factors of how efficient your heating equipment is. So it's not exactly a straightforward answer, but we can talk afterwards in terms of like what you could do to start to, how would you go about figuring that out, and what you can even do to kind of experiment. Because when you're talking about home energy use, it is a mix of like issues of comfort as well as energy savings and cost. So it can be kind of complicated in terms of figuring like what's the best scenario for you. In general, what we say is that, I don't know if you guys are familiar with a newer technology called air source heat pumps. It's a highly efficient way to heat your home with electricity, much more than like what we call resistance heat, where you might have like a electric register. That takes a lot of electricity. These air source heat pumps are more efficient. They operate below zero, but not as efficiently. So in most cases, you still need a backup system. In rural parts of the state that already heat with electric heat or propane, economically it makes sense to switch to these air source heat pumps. However, in the metro area where you have natural gas as an alternative, it doesn't yet make clear economic sense to make that switch. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an indication of kind of the scale.
But you've been using those for quite a while.
Yeah, and they work really well, especially in more temperate climates. But now they're advancing the technology to operate better in our cold climate. So you're going to probably be hearing more and more about this technology as an alternative for heating. And people's decisions are going to be a mix of like environmental issues, cost savings, comfort, ability to easily install, all of those types of things.
So I have a smart thermostat like most people do, but I know there's a difference in letting, at what point do you turn the thermostat down only to come back?
That's our number one recommendation for people is adjusting your thermostat. So if you're gone more than a couple hours, it generally makes sense to turn it down. But I bring up the issue of comfort again too, because you also need to recognize like how quickly is your home going to adjust and then be able to get back up to that comfortable temperature. That also depends on your heating system. So people who have, say, a forced air furnace, which is, the most common in newer construction, probably really from like, say, at least the 50s on, you'll see that more commonly than a boiler system with radiators. A forced air furnace reacts really quickly. So you can be dropping your temperature down to a lower degree, and it'll react more quickly than if you have radiator heat, which is slower to react. So that also has to play into your decision of how much do you want to adjust your temperature, and for how long will you be gone in order to take advantage of that. There's a myth out there that it takes more energy to, bring your home back up than the money you'll save turning it down. And if it's more than a couple hours, that's not the case. So it does pay off, especially if you're gone all day. Like, many of us are home more than we were a couple years ago, right? Where you had a good 8 or 9 hours where you could be dropping your thermostat several degrees, and that could save you a lot of money. Now, as people are home more and not gone all day, really the evening time when you're sleeping is the best opportunity to do that. And those days when you are gone all day from home, turning it down is a really simple way to be saving yourself money and energy. Yeah.
I installed 2 gas fireplaces right before this all happened. I just thought it was a great idea.
Yeah.
And we got a new furnace.
Okay, great.
So, yes, the furnace is more efficient.
Yep, so that's helping you.
And to do.
Yeah, it can be. And what you probably want to do is just experiment a little bit to see like if you're noticing any difference in your bills. It's a little challenging to track that because there's other factors, like depending how cold it is outside. But I'll do something similar because you're thinking about how much space are you trying to heat. So do you have the furnace going at a higher level to heat the entire house, where if you're just in one room and you just need to kind of break that chill, flipping on the gas fireplace, for 10, 15, 20 minutes may be a more efficient way to do that. Again, it's one of these comfort issues too, but I've also started actually reducing my temperature in my home all the way, I used to at 68 is what's recommended. I've been trying to do more like 67, even 66 if it's a sunny day, just because I know how high the gas prices are right now.
Right.
But when it's really chilly, sometimes you need to bump it up to be comfortable. So I encourage people just to kind of experiment and see what works well for you. One thing with the furnace, if you have a furnace fan going all the time, that's also going to be using electricity. So again, it's kind of a comfort issue, but if you have it on auto, then the fan's only going to go when it needs to be going.
Yeah,
So that's something to look at too.
I keep
Yeah.
the fan going 24/7 to keep the mold and the pollen and the
So-
humidity and the temperature consistent between floors. They just keep running 24/7. It's like an extra $1 a day when I do the math.
Yeah, and some people need to do that. Same with like when it comes to summertime, there's health issues where people who have really bad allergies can't open up their windows, so they have their air conditioning running more than another household might that doesn't have that issue. Or you may have to run dehumidifiers or humidifiers depending on the characteristics of your household. Those are all things that you just have to kind of balance and be aware of. If I'm gone more than 2 hours, I turn it down. I'm not exactly sure how the math works out, but I think 3 hours is a safe bet. Okay, then some of the other common uses of energy in our homes. Appliances are another 15%, so this is washer, dryer, fridge, microwave, stove, that type of thing. Lighting is another 10%, and with the advent of LED light bulbs, those are so much more efficient than the old incandescent light bulbs. So if you haven't converted yet, please do. They pay for themselves in less than a year, and they last several years.
Yeah.
Yep. And then electronics are only 5%, and the reason being that kind of the newer the technology, the more efficient it tends to be. So a new TV compared to, say, a 20-year-old TV is going to use a lot less energy. And then, all of our smartphones, tablets, computers, they tend to be quite efficient. But if you have a lot going all the time, it does add up. So, be turning them off, unplugging them when you don't need them. Okay, now we're going to talk about the bills themselves, just to give you a little more insight into when you're looking at your bills, kind of what they mean and what your household trends are, and if things are seeming normal or not normal. Okay, so this is an Excel electricity bill. You'll notice it's 13 months, January to January. There's a little bit of a trend. This trend is not as obvious as some households, but I wonder if you couldn't tell me what you do see as a trend. Heating and cooling, yep. And why would that be with electricity? This home heats with natural gas, by the way. It's a furnace fan. When you're running your furnace more, you're going to see that also in your electricity bill, not just in your natural gas bill. And then what do you notice in the middle, in the summer months? There's a spike. Why is that? Air conditioning, exactly. So what I kind of like to tell people is we have kind of you have kind of a baseline load of electricity. If you look at kind of these months, like April, May, more like October, some of September, that's kind of when we're not heating or cooling as much. And then everything above that is typically kind of heating and cooling related things. Or if you have a household that's dealing with moisture, you might see a peak like in the spring where people are running dehumidifiers. There might be other things going on in the household, but we can tell a lot by looking at these trends, kind of what's normal and maybe ask some questions like, what's going on? What was happening in November that you had such a huge spike? Did you have a bunch of company? Was there something unusual going on in your home that might have caused that? So there's a lot you can tell just by the trends. And this particular house, they're trying to use the air conditioning minimally. You would typically see even a higher, like in a home that uses a lot of electricity, would be even higher spike in the summer months. Often higher than any winter month. But again, this depends on kind of how the household operates. The other thing you can do to kind of help understand what's going on is comparing the average temperature from the current year to the previous year. If this were summertime and you noticed a big difference in the summer usage, you could look at the temperature and say, oh, it was hotter than normal. That household was probably using more air conditioning than they did in the previous year. So there's a lot of good information just on trends that these charts provide you. Okay, so this is the Excel bill broken down into kind of what you can control, what you can't control. And you'll notice up top, this is 34 days, which is a little bit more than normal. You're going to see bills anywhere from like 28 to 34. Okay, so kind of keep that in mind when you're looking at how many kilowatt hours are being used. So there were 1,000 kilowatt hours being used. And I would say that's a little higher than the normal based on the size of this particular home. When we look at kind of average usage over the course of a year, a home that is around 2,000 square feet, so kind of picture like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, split-level ranch type home, you look for electricity anywhere from like 600 to 800 on average over the course of the year. So you're going to have higher usage probably in the summer, maybe a little higher in the winter, but it's going to average around this. So this is maybe a little bit more than average. So there could be other things going on in the house. Also that it's a few days longer, that's going to add some to the usage too. So we have things that are fixed that you pay regardless of how much energy you use. The bulk of the bill is based on how much energy you're consuming. And so that's where you kind of get some of this motivation to check your energy use because it'll bring your whole bill down. We have a basic service charge, that's $8. It's $8 for overhead lines. If you happen to live in an area that has underground lines, it'll be $10 on your charge. And so that's before you even turn anything on. You're just going to pay $8 just to have electricity at your home. And then we have another fixed charge. It's called an affordability charge. And have you guys ever noticed that or wondered what that's about? Noticed it? Do you know what it's for?
It's basically subsidizing people who can't pay the bill.
Yeah, it's an affordability program called Power On. So people who are eligible for a federal program called Energy Assistance can also sign up for this Power On program that brings their their bills into within a certain percentage of their income so they're more able to pay the bills and not fall behind. This is where that money comes to fund that program. And then if we start looking at variable costs, you'll see that that's the vast majority of what we're paying. So we have just an energy charge, and when that charge changes, they have to seek permission from the Public Utilities Commission to get that part of the bill changed. Same with the basic service charge too. So in the winter time, it's almost 9 cents a kilowatt hour. It's higher in the summertime. That's something else you might not have noticed. If you get a bill that covers like May and June, summer charges are June, July, August, September. The rest of the year is considered winter, but they're going to split up your bill based on that month. So you'll see part of it being a summer charge and part of it being a winter charge. The thing with the higher summer charges is we were just talking about that's usually when most homes use the most electricity. So you're using more and you're paying more for what you're using. So that's why you'll see what might feel like a little extra high electricity bills in the summertime. Okay? And then we have the fuel cost charge, and this is going to fluctuate month to month again, just slightly based on market rates. It's more of just a pass-through cost. We have the sales true-up charge, which is a little confusing to explain, but sometimes it's going to be a credit, and sometimes it's going to be a charge on your bill. And what it is that the utility companies are required to promote energy efficiency to their customers by state law. But if you're an energy company, do you want to sell more or less energy, right? You'd want to sell more. That's your business. However, you're told you have to encourage people to use less of your product. So what they've done is they've kind of come up with an arrangement where they've said, okay, we're going to have like this amount of revenue generated. And if they generate more revenue than what was agreed upon, we get a credit on our bill. If they generate less revenue, then we're going to get a charge on our bill to kind of make things whole. That's kind of been determined like, one of the strategies to kind of address this dilemma. So that's what you'll notice from month to month that'll change. And then if we go down to resource adjustment, anybody know what that is about? That actually, it funds a number of programs, one of which are these energy efficiency programs that we're talking about. So if you ever applied to get a rebate for replacing your air conditioner, if this were the center point bill, your furnace, that type of thing, that's where that rebate funds come from. If you get a home energy audit done, which we'll talk about, it's partially subsidized and it comes from that fund as well. Okay, and then what is this line item? You guys recognize that from our earlier conversation? It's the interim rate adjustment. It's that.
Oh, okay.
It's that. It's that extra percentage, the rate that they were allowed to start charging us in advance of a rate case being decided. So if you've missed like the flyer in the mail where they tell you that a rate case is pending, if you see this line item on your bill, it means that a rate case is underway. That's your clue. So you're seeing that added on. We have taxes and fees. These are going to look different based on where you live. So different municipalities will have different fees or taxes sometimes. If you live in the city of Minneapolis, there's what's called a franchise fee. It's an extra 5%. What's important to note is that all these taxes and fees are based on the subtotal. So the higher this is, the more taxes and fees you're going to be paying as well on your bill. And it can be in excess of 10% of your bill depending on where you live. So just something to be aware of. The last item is a saver switch. Do any of you have central air conditioning? Okay, are you participating in the AC saver switch? Okay, please look into that. It is like the easiest thing to do, and it'll save you 15% off your summer bill. What they do is they put a little switch on your air conditioning, and during peak times of energy use, to control demand across the system, they can flip your air conditioning on and off for about 20 minutes at a time. They're not going to shut it off completely, but they're going to be kind of doing this, amongst your neighbors around the community to try to ease up demand so we don't get in a power shortage issue. It's called demand response is the term for this. You can also do it if you have an electric water heater, and it's 2%, I believe it's 2% all year round for that. So this household has a water heater. This isn't a summer bill, so you're not going to see the air conditioning version of this. But it's a really easy way, and we talked about summer being the highest electricity bills. So if you don't mind, occasional interruption, it's an easy way to save 15% off your bill. So keep that in mind. Give them a call. It's called the AC Saver Switch. There's 2 programs. There's that one, and then there's the AC Saver Rewards that they connect to a smart thermostat. So you need to kind of decide, they give you a flat discount for the whole summer versus an ongoing 15% rate. So you need to do the math and kind of decide what is a better deal for you. But like if you already have a smart thermostat or you don't want one, the 15% is a better deal for most people long term if you do the math. But you can look into it. Similar in that, like, the same kind of categories, right, for a natural gas bill. It's just the line items are different. And gas is measured in therms instead of kilowatt hours. And this is from January to February. This is a very recent bill. And we have the same kind of thing where we have a fixed cost. In this case, it's $9.50. And this particular household only has a gas furnace. Everything else in the home is electric. So in the summertime, they're just basically paying the basic service charge and any related taxes. There isn't any therm charges because there isn't any gas being consumed during those months. So we have a delivery charge. The decoupling adjustment is that same concept. They just use a little different term of, in the previous bill, we had the sales true-up. It's just a different way of saying the decoupling adjustment, same concept. And then we have the gas affordability charge, which is the same as the affordability charge on the thing. It goes to what's called the gas affordability program, same concept where it can help people who are struggling to pay their bills, pay their gas bills. This is that February event we talked about. So you're seeing it as a line item. And what they've done, and Excel has done this as well, and is that they're making the price per therm lower in the heating months when it's going to have the biggest impact on people to try to cushion the blow of this. And then in the summer months, when maybe you're just having a gas stove, a gas dryer, a gas water heater, you're going to see a higher rate charge. They also extended the number of months in which they're charging people. I can't remember the exact number of months, but they've made it a longer time period, again, to bring that number down on a monthly basis. So it used to be more condensed and a higher rate, and they're extending it further. And this whole issue is under review right now. So we'll find out later to what extent we continue to pay this and how much.
So there is an end because they will eventually make up their money.
There is an end. It's been,
I just don't know what that is.
yeah, it's kind of under review right now. And I can tell you afterwards, I can look it up to tell you exactly how many months they're currently planning to extend it. But all that is a little bit subject to change too. Okay, this cost of gas, this is the thing that is impacting us when it comes to market rates of natural gas. This is fluctuating a lot. It's gone up significantly compared to last year, and it's changing month to month. So if you go back and look at your past CenterPoint bills, you're going to notice that number changing a lot, because again, this is a pass-through cost. But this cost of gas is what we're really seeing having the biggest noticeable impact on how our bills have changed from last year compared to this year. And in addition, we're having a colder winter this year than we did last year. So we're using more gas at a higher rate than we did last year. So all of this is really like catching people's attention when they go to pay their bill. You know, this bill's almost $200. It would not have been that high last year, you know, even with the same amount of usage. And so it's really catching people's attention. And then, you know, if you combine it with, you know, over $100 electricity bill on top of that, that's a pretty significant cost for a household on a monthly basis during these winter months. You can, down here, it kind of gives you a clue. This purchased gas adjustment refers to this cost of gas. So this is what they're saying, it's that much higher than what kind of that standard amount would be. So you can look at that as kind of a clue as to how much more you're paying than they kind of anticipated before these costs were changing. The other thing you'll notice, in the winter months, there's no taxes or no taxes for heating, because in Minnesota, our primary heating fuel is tax exempt from November to April. So if you happen to be on all electric heat, you would want to call Excel in this case and tell them that you have electric heat, and they would remove the sales tax. If you have electric heat, you also want to call them and get on a special electric heating rate, which saves you like 3 cents or so a kilowatt hour, maybe a little bit more than that, which helps cushion the blow because electric heat tends to cost more money. And they do it automatically with natural gas because they assume you're heating with natural gas. But they don't assume that with electricity because it's not as common.
But that's your primary source of heat.
Primary, yep. So some people will have multiple sources of heat. They might have an addition that's heated with electricity, like have registers, because that was a simple thing to do. That wouldn't be considered your primary heat. And you can talk to them about how you would define. Because some homes, depending on how they were built, might be kind of split up in different ways. But that's just an easy way to save money. We talked to people who have had electric heat and didn't know about this, and they're able to actually get tax refunds for a couple years back, which can really add up. We talked about the rising costs. So what can you do as a consumer to try to manage this? We talked about managing your temperature settings. That's going to be probably one of the most effective things to do. But you have to do it within reason because you do need to stay comfortable. So taking those opportunities to turn it down when you're away or asleep, seeing if you can turn it down a degree or two and not notice and be okay. Like on a warm, sunny day, if you're like in a front room and you have sun coming in, you might be able to tolerate a lower temperature than you would if you're, say, in a back room that doesn't get as much light. Look at home efficiency opportunities. So we're going to be talking about home energy audits in a couple more slides. And it's a good way to kind of help you manage these fluctuating energy costs, and it's going to make your home more comfortable. And even under like normal energy conditions, things like adding insulation, sealing up the holes in your home, when you comes to replace an appliance, doing it with the most efficient one you can afford. These things are going to save you long-term regardless of what the prices are, but even more important when we're dealing with higher than normal prices. It helps cushion that blow a little by allowing you to use less energy. If you're having trouble paying your bills, look for help. And we've been fielding hundreds of calls in the last 2 years from people struggling to pay your bills, and we're very happy to talk to people. So if you know of anyone in that situation, send them our way. All of our services are free of charge, and we connect them to a variety of resources that can help with bills. One thing you can do that will help kind of even out your cash flow is to sign up for the budget billing programs where they even it out and do like an average cost per month. So rather than having really high electricity bills in the summer and lower ones in the spring, it will be more of an average, and it makes it a little bit easier for you to plan. And they make periodic adjustments to kind of keep you on track. You can also comment on some of these upcoming decisions. So we have some information about how to comment on the February 2021 gas price spike public hearing, as well as the upcoming rate increases. These are all public processes. So this is information coming up next week. There's going to be hearings on that gas price issue. If you scan in here, it'll go to our website, and we have an article with more information about that. You can participate by phone, video conference. You can record a video, send it in. You can send a written comment as well. And we've written a number of articles about this particular issue. And then every rate case has a public hearing process as well. So Centerpoint had some already occur, but there's some more coming on the web. Information's here. And you can also just email the Public Utilities Commission. And these are categories in what are called dockets. So in the email, you would just do this 21-435 and express your thoughts on the proposed rates. And Excel is also going to be proceeding with their rate increase. They just have not yet set any public hearings. But you can still submit comments to that same email address, and then those are the dockets for electricity and then for natural gas. Okay, and then we're going to go over some tips in the remaining time, some of which we've already talked about. But in the wintertime, controlling the room temperature is just the easiest, cheapest thing you can do. It's just getting in the habit of it or setting it on a programmable thermostat or a smart thermostat. So what's recommended is 68 when you're home. If that's not comfortable, adjust it a degree or two at a time to see, kind of where that sweet spot is for you. I know like with older people, when my parents come to visit, we have to crank the heat up, and I try to add a lot of blankets because I'm just like, worried about my bill. But some people can tolerate less than 68. It's a personal preference issue, but you want to stay healthy and comfortable. You can reduce it up to 10 degrees when you're asleep or away is kind of the rule of thumb, but never below 55 degrees. And why is that? Pipes, exactly. And, you need to know your home, like depending on how much insulation you have, where those pipes are located, it's just not worth the risk. So if you're gone on vacation, never lower than 55. And this is something when we find out people have like relocated like from a southern part of the US, they don't necessarily recognize this, right, as an issue, but really important. Not worth saving a couple dollars on your energy bill to come home to a disaster. Use the sun to warm your home. So open up the curtains, blinds, let that warm sun come in and passively warm your home. Wear layers, it is winter. That'll help you tolerate a little cooler temperature. As much as you're able, try to avoid or minimize space heater use. So I'm talking about those electric, little things that you can have. Some people have them under their desk, or if you have a basement space that isn't particularly warm, or some people are in an attic space where it's not well heated, they use a lot of energy. And we can see that in a winter bill pretty clearly. When we see a spike on a winter electricity bill, that's the first question we ask. Are you running a space heater? Or do you have like an electric register somewhere? Sometimes they're necessary though. So if you do need to use them, just manage how you're using them, turning them off when you leave the room. Make sure you're using them safely as well. Weatherization and maintenance is also really important, and I think even more so in these times of rising energy costs. There's home energy audits, where there's a group called the Home Energy Squad. This is one of those programs we talked about that are funded through the resource adjustment rate that we talked about. And they will come in and do a comprehensive view of your home and identify any leakage you might have going on, where you might be lacking insulation. And identify improvements that could be made, and even give you estimates on the spot of what these things might cost. The other thing they do is it includes a number of free installations of things. So if you have an older water heater, they'll put a blanket around it. They'll add weather stripping to your doors. Any incandescent light bulbs you have left, they'll replace with LEDs for free. If you don't have a programmable thermostat, they'll give you one for free. So oftentimes, these like kind of free installations are worth whatever cost you might pay for the audit. The most you're going to pay for a full comprehensive audit is $100, but many communities subsidize these even further, and sometimes they can even be free, depending on your community. And for income qualified households, they are free. So it's a really good way of starting to figure out what can I be doing to my home to make it more comfortable and efficient in the long term. I recommend these a lot to people who are new homeowners, that they've just bought a home, and they might be thinking about remodels in the future. For example, knowing what should be on your list when it comes to energy efficiency is nice to know. As you're changing things, you can take advantage of that time and do a few things at once. A number of rebates available when you do these home efficiency improvements. So you can get rebates on the installation, on getting a more efficient furnace or water heater or that type of thing. So important to get familiar with all of those things. There's also do-it-yourself kits you can get. If you go to CenterPoint's website, for example, they have a whole number of things that you can just request for free, including like window film. So people who have older windows, you can request some kits to do that. That's a really quick, easy, inexpensive way to keep the draft out. You may know windows are super expensive. You're not going to get your money back in energy savings by replacing your windows. But people have to replace their windows for other reasons. They're not working properly, they might be rotting, you're changing the style. So what we encourage people is when you do replace your windows, get the most efficient ones you can afford, because it's going to be probably 30 or 40 years, hopefully, before you would do that again. And you can also do draft blockers like on your doors too. You can buy them, or you can just wrap up a towel or a blanket, just do it old school. Or even do them like if you have a windowsill, you can just roll up stuff too, and kind of cover up any leaks you might have. Also really important to maintain your equipment. So getting a furnace tune-up every year. It's also a safety check. They're going to be checking for carbon monoxide leaks. And they're also going to be making sure it's running efficiently. And it's a good preemptive move, especially if you have an older furnace, to identify things that you don't want breaking down on a cold January Sunday, for example. And then be replacing your furnace filters if you have a forced air furnace on a regular basis. Do it based on what the technician recommends, how often you need to do that. And then if you have a boiler, you also want to be getting that tuned up. And then tuning up your air conditioner, if you have central air every year, is a good idea as well. Again, just maintaining these equipment, it's going to make them run more efficiently and hopefully avoid inconvenient breakdowns too. And also it'll give you a sense of like, how much life do I have left in this and when do I need to start planning for replacement? So you don't want to make those decisions under duress. It's a lot of money, yeah. And you want to be kind of understanding like what rebates would I be eligible for if I got certain types of equipment, because that can save you significant amounts of money. And then just some basic energy saving stuff. Turn off or unplug electronics you're not using. It's a term called vampire use. Anything that has like an LED bulb on it or a clock is actually drawing small amounts of power. Even though it's not on, it's not actually off. So if you have your computer plugged in all the time, it's drawing a small amount of power. So again, you want to be like reasonable about what you're unplugging, not unplugging. So I have a coffee maker. We unplug that because I don't need the coffee maker on all day, but I'm not going to unplug my microwave, for example. So you need to kind of use some common sense, but when you're able to, do it. It's not going to be huge amounts of energy, but every little bit helps. The other option is to put things on a power strip, and then you're just flipping the power strip. So that's how we have our TV set up. Do you do that as well?
Yeah, in fact, my wash machine consumes 10 watts.
Just sitting there?
Just doing nothing.
Really?
My entertainment center consumes 22.
Wow.
So whenever I've been using it, flip the switch.
That's interesting. I haven't heard of washing machines doing that.
Not much.
Yeah, if you want to get real scientific about it, look for a product called a kilowatt.
Yeah.
It's like $15 on Amazon, and it measures how much wattage each appliance is using. So.
You can check them out at the library as well for free and take them home. Yeah, so great. I love it. So that's what I love about these talks is I learn stuff too. I hadn't really thought of a washing machine, so that's, yeah. We talked about LED light bulbs. Please replace your incandescent bulbs if you haven't already. It's a super easy way to save energy. And then for your appliances, run them full. They're going to use the same amount of electricity whether they're half full or full. So as you're able to, full dishwasher, you can turn off the heated drying, just open the door, full loads of laundry, and then washing with cold water. And why would that save energy?
Use a water heater.
Water heater, exactly. And remember, the water heater was 15% of our energy use. So the less hot water you use, you're either going to save on your natural gas bill or your electricity bill, depending on how you heat your water. And then in the summer, a couple months away still, but just thinking ahead, it's kind of the opposite. You want to wait until it's about 78 degrees inside before you turn on the air conditioning, if you can tolerate that. When it's really humid, this might not be comfortable for everybody. So again, it's personal preference and what you're able to manage, but trying to wait as long as you can to turn that air on. And then you can use fans to make you feel cooler. A fan, because of the wind chill effect, will make you feel up to 4 degrees cooler. So if you wait till 78 and you have a fan blowing on you, it's actually going to feel like it's 74. And when you leave the room, turn the fan off because the fan is cooling you. It's not actually cooling the room. You want to keep that hot sun out in the summer, so you want to shut your shades, curtains, opening your windows in the cool evenings or early morning, again, to minimize that air conditioning, the need for air conditioning, and keeping your air conditioner free of debris so it's working well, getting it tuned up. If you have window units, you want to seal around it so that you're not letting that hot air into your home. And then you want to be thinking about moisture control too. This is a common problem, especially like in lower levels of our homes, to make sure that if you need to, running dehumidifiers. Air conditioning kind of helps with that as well, keeping things from getting too moist. Yeah, and it is just going to depend on the weather, how humid it is, what your comfort level is. But those are the times where it's usually cooler, so it's going to be hopefully cooler, less than 78 degrees outside at that time, that you're, in net kind of cooling the home. But it's depending what you have your air conditioning set at. We also mentioned people who have like asthma or allergies. They may just need to be running an air conditioner all the time too. So it's, the asterisk is I think, appropriate. A lot of this stuff is really based on your unique household characteristics. And the temperature, which we can't control, has a major effect on our bills too. like last June was particularly warm. I think you might have noticed that in that electricity bill. Hadn't had that warm of a June in a really long time, so was using air conditioning much earlier than normally. It's like July, August. Last year it was really hot early. And then talking about help with bills, I just wanted to put this up here too. Energy assistance is a federal program that's been around for many years. You can get assistance with your bills based on your income and household size. So these are the current requirements. They look at the most recent 3 months. So for people whose incomes kind of fluctuate throughout the year, it's not your annual income, it's the last 3 months. But using the annual income helps you kind of better estimate, like, do I fall within this range? They recently increased this. It used to be 50% of state median income. This is now 60% of state median income. So a larger number of households are eligible than they have been in the past. So if you know of someone struggling and they may have said, well, I don't qualify, I encourage them to look back because they might actually qualify this year where they may not have a couple years ago. The thing about energy assistance is it also then opens up the door for those affordability programs we talked about, where they'll bring down your bill based on a percentage of your income, and that's super significant in terms of staying on top of your bills, not falling behind, and not being subject to disconnection. When your energy gets disconnected, it's a huge problem. It just creates a cycle of challenges, and whatever you can do to avoid that is really important. So working with your utility to set up a payment plan, getting help if you're eligible. The other thing is that eligibility for energy assistance can also introduce opportunities for free weatherization and efficiency improvements in your home. If your furnace would break down, for example, and you're the homeowner, they could come in and help you with that repair or replacement. So really important program. This year it also includes help with water bills too, which is also really important. We've gotten a lot of calls this year for people struggling with their water bills. Getting your water shut off is another really difficult thing to deal with. At the beginning of the presentation, I mentioned that we give free energy bill consultations. We just wanted to put information about some upcoming sessions we have. We always offer 2 a month. So we have 2 coming up in March. We do one like late afternoon, early evening, and then one over the lunch hour. You can sign up on our website, or if these times aren't convenient, we can arrange separate times that are for you. We're very flexible in finding times to meet with people. We just ask to get a copy of your bill in advance of the appointment. It takes about 30 minutes over the phone or via video conference is how we're doing it now. We, in the past, have done a lot of these in person. We used to go to workplaces and do them over the lunch hour. And hopefully we can get back to that again soon. I think we're getting closer. But this is a really nice service. We found that on average a household saves $150 the first year by things that we identify that they could be doing to help improve their energy use. And you can talk about any energy related issues. So we're at a remodeling fair today. If you were thinking about like doing a remodel, we could talk to you about things you might want to consider when it comes to energy as you're exploring that remodeling project as well. So whatever energy question you have, you can use the time that how it suits you best. And that's our contact information. And with that, I'd like to thank you for coming and for your attention, and happy to take any other questions you might have.